Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're reaching out and watching from. This is Chemistry Hour with Jenny. And remember, on my last video, I promised I'll be making a video on practical chemistry. Okay, as Waec is approaching, students are really finding it difficult on how to go about practical questions. And here I've come up with something interesting, something that you'd like. Okay, and here this practical is on titration. Remember, there are two aspects of chemistry practical. Number one is quantitative analysis, the one you call titration, or you can call it volumetric analysis. And the second part is qualitative analysis, where we study ions, okay, cations and anions. The food test, where we test for reducing sugar, where we test for proteins, where we test for fat and oil, carbohydrates, simple sugar, polysaccharide, as the case may be. Here today, I want to talk about titration. And here is a sample question, and it reads, A is a solution of HCl containing 9.30 gram per dm cube. And B is a solution of X2CO3. Of course, obviously, is a triazole 4, but then we don't know the particular one, containing 12.6 gram per dm cube. And the instruction says, put A into the burette and titrate it against 20 or 25 cm cube portions of B using methyl orange as indicator. Tabulate your readings and calculate your average volume of A used. And now the equation of reaction is given. Okay, the acid reacts with X2CO3 to give us a salt, water, and carbon 4 oxide gas. Of course, you have been told that whenever an acid reacts with a triazole 4, carbon 4 oxide gas is given off. Now, this is where students make a very big mistake in exams, be it internal or external. Here that they wrote volume of pipette. Please don't leave it blank, because you can see up here that they indicated 20 cm cube or 25 cm cube. Now, the examiner does not know the volume that you used. So it is very, very important that you indicate, because it is that volume you indicate that they will use in marking your script. So it's either you record 20 or 25 cm cube, depending on the one your school used or the one that was allocated to you. Okay, this is for school candidates, even for private candidates too. All right, so here where the wrote volume of pipette, I will quickly come and write 25.0 cm cube. That is if you're using 25. And make sure that this 25.0 cm cube you're using will reflect in every other calculations you're going to make. Now, for clarity's sake, please, this is alternative to practical. There was no formal titration that was done. You can see that a table has already been made. Okay? Now, I believe we all know how to carry out the real life practical before we get these values that we will tabulate. So please, students, if you are not familiar with titration and how to get your burette readings tabulated right like this, please try and do that, or you wait for the next video where I will perform a live practical on titration, and then you learn from it. Okay, so you can see that this is a table already, and you are required to fill in this spaces left. Okay, now I can see that I have my rough, my first titer, second titer, and third titer. Now I'm required to do what? Provide the values for these empty spaces. I can say that I have final, initial, and volume of acid used. Now we should know that to fill up the spaces, we'll subtract the initial reading from the final reading. Okay, now 20.50 minus 0.00 will give me 20.50. Please, students, be very, very careful in this part or on this table, because any cancellation on the table will attract deduction of marks. Okay, no alteration, no cancellation. The neater the table, the better. Okay, now how do I fill up the space? Since I have volume of A used here and I have initial reading to be 0.00, definitely my final reading should be 20.30. Okay, so that when I subtract 0.00 from 20.30, I will still get this value. Now I have 20.10 here and I have my volume of acid used to be 20.10. So I should know that I will have 0.00 here, so that when I subtract 0.00 from this value, I will get this. Now how do I get this value now? The final minus initial value will give me this. So I have 20.20. Now the next thing I'll look out for is if these values are concordant. Okay, you must have been told what concordant and consistent values are. If the difference among these values is not less than, or let's say if the difference between or among these values is plus or minus 0.10, 0.15, 0.20, or 0.30. Okay, but each of these difference, they have mark allocation. If you are lucky, the difference among your value is plus or minus 0.10, you will be allocated 5 marks. Okay, if it is 0.20, I think 4 marks, 0.30, 3 marks, and so on and so forth. So you need to be guided on this. Now let's quickly go over to checking if these values are concordant. Mind you, students, when calculating your average volume of acid used, please do not include the rough. Do not include the value for the rough, because this rough will only guide you on how your values, the range of value you should get during your titration. So if you want to calculate your average volume of acid used, you're going to add the first, second, and third titer values. Okay, now when you add it, you divide it by 3. Let's say, for instance, you're only working with these two values. When you add this to this, you divide by 2, because you only picked 2 values. But if you are using this 3, you're going to add this 3 and divide by 3. You already know how to calculate mean, even in your elementary mathematics. Okay, now let me check if these 3 values are concordant. You can see that the difference among these 3 values is plus or minus 0.10. So definitely these values are what? Concordant. I will go ahead to calculate my average volume of acid used. So I have average volume of acid used. Okay, so what do I have? It will be my first plus my second plus my third, all over what? All over 3. So my first value there is 20.30 plus 20.10 plus 20.20, all over 3. If you use your calculator, okay, you have okay, total of 60.60 over 3. So when you divide it by 3, you have divided by 3 becomes 20 points. I have 20.20 as my average volume of acid used. Okay, you see, so please, your calculator will give you 20.2. Please do well to add 0 at the back. You can see that the values on this table are to 2 decimal places. Please do well to note that your values on the table should be to 2 decimal what? Places. That is why my average volume of acid used is 20.20. I added 0 at the back. My calculator gave me 20.2. So it is your duty to always add 0 at the back and put your correct unit. Now it says, from your results and information provided, calculate the concentration of A in mole per dm cube. Now please take note of this equation of reaction again. You can see that we have 2 moles of acid. Okay, we have 2 moles of acid and 1 mole of the base. So we're working with 2 moles of acid and 1 mole of base, and we're told that the acid contains 9.30 gram per dm cube and the base contains 12.66 gram per dm cube. So let's quickly answer this question. Concentration of A in mole per dm cube. And the second one says concentration of B in mole per dm cube, and lastly molar mass of X2CO3. They gave it to us to be what? That of HCl is 36.5. Lucky you, it was calculated. But in case it was not given, they will give you the atomic masses of H and Cl. All right, let's answer number 1. Okay, concentration of A in mole per dm cube. This is the molarity. And how do we calculate concentration of any substance in mole per dm cube, be it an acid or a base? How do we do that? Okay, now since the molar mass of the acid is given to you already, so we're going to be using molarity equal to mass concentration all over what? Molar mass. You know this now, that to get molar concentration or concentration in mole per dm cube, it is mass concentration over what? Molar mass. And remember, they gave us the mass concentration of the acid to be what? 9 point, let's go back again, 9.30. So we'll have 9.30 gram per dm cube. Okay, and what's the molar mass of the acid? You can see it's 36.5. So when you divide 9.30 by 36.5, what do you have? You have 0.254 mole per dm cube. Okay, you have 0.254 mole per dm cube. Know that this mass concentration is in gram per dm cube. Okay, and the molar mass is in gram per mole. Okay, so what happens? This gram cancels gram and we're left with what? Mole per dm cube. Okay, we're left with mole per dm cube. So that is why molarity is in mole per dm cube. Okay, is that okay? Now, having known you can see that the molarity is in 3 significant figures. Please take note that molarity should always be in 3 significant figures. The same thing as molar mass concentration. It should also be to 3 significant what? Figures. Now, the second question says concentration of B in mole per dm cube. Having known that of A, since I know the concentration of A, to get B will be very easy because our B is X2CO3. We cannot possibly calculate the molar mass of this substance because we don't know what X is. So that is where we'll now be applying the word titration formula that says CAVA over CBVB equal to what? NA over NB. And what does my C is concentration of acid, volume of acid, which is the average titer, concentration of base, volume of base, which was the 25 you recorded, number of moles of acid and base. They are gotten from what? A balanced chemical equation. Like I told you, the acid and base will be 2:1 from that balanced equation. So concentration of acid here is 0.254. Volume of acid, we got it to be 20.20. Okay, all over. Concentration of base is what we're looking for. Volume of base is 25. Number of moles of acid is 2 and that of base is 1. So please follow the procedure. Write your equation first. Substitution. Make CB subject of the formula. When I make CB subject of the formula, I'm left with 0.254 times 20.20 times 1 all over 25 times 2. Okay, so what do I have? Use your calculator. 0.254 times 20.20 times 1. Okay, it gave us numerator is 5.1308. 5.1308 all over 50. Okay, divide it by 50. What do you have? I have 0.102 mole per dm cube. Did you see that? 0.102 mole per dm cube. See how we arrived at that. First of all, this is your B. Okay, B is a triazo carbonate 4. Now, using your titration formula, do your normal substitution. We arrived at this. Okay, this is your final answer. You can see that it is also to 3 decimal places, just like we have for A. Okay, and the last question says the molar mass of X2CO3 when HCl is given. The molar mass of HCl is given. It's very simple. Just make molar mass subject of the formula. Now, molar mass, how do you get your molar mass? Molar mass is always in gram per mole. Okay, molar mass should be mass concentration, which is in gram per dm cube, all over molar concentration. Are you following? Molar concentration is in mole per dm cube. Okay, please, if you're liking what we're doing, please give us a follow and a like, and please repost this video. Okay, if you're watching from YouTube, please follow up, like, and share. Put on your notification bell to know when next we are dropping this video. Thank you very much. Remember, you're still watching Chemistry Hour with Jenny. Okay, so let's continue. To get your molar mass, it will be your mass concentration in gram per dm cube all over molar concentration in mole per dm cube. What is your mass concentration of your base? Okay, let's go over to the first page. We have mass concentration of this should be what? 12.6. So we're using 12.6. So we'll have 12.6 all over. What's the molar conc of your base? Molar conc of the base is 0.102. I have 0.102. So let's divide it now. 12.6 divided by 0.102. We're left with, the answer is what? 123.5. Okay, what will be the unit of molar mass? Please, unit is very, very important. Okay, you can get the answer and you fail the units. You score 0 on that question. Okay, all right, and wrong unit too is also punishable. You'll be penalized for wrong units. No unit at all is even the worst. Okay, so this is our molar mass. And what's the unit of molar mass? Gram per what? Gram per mole. Okay, you can see step by step how we arrive at this answer. With this, we have done justice to the titration question that you can see on the screen. Okay, so thank you very much for watching Chemistry Hour with Jenny. We'll keep posting and make you get prepared for the forthcoming JAMB, Waec, GCE, and Neco. Have a lovely day until I come your way next time. Bye for now.